Hey guys, and welcome to Dance Talk. I'm BJ Rourke, your host, and today we're talking about hip hop. I am really excited to welcome our fantastic guests. We've got Sisqo, Neven Connolly, and Yamada. Thanks so much for coming on today, guys. I've known you all for a long time, and I'm really excited to talk about a really important topic. I want to kind of approach this episode as a studio owner, someone that has some knowledge of hip-hop, but nowhere near as much as you guys, and I kind of want you to educate me as well as our viewers at the same time today. How do you guys see the state of hip-hop dance in Australia at the moment? Very vague question to start with.
Oops.
That's so
well,
broad.
I guess
Yes.
first I guess we'd have to say that hip-hop is only a little umbrella term for some dance forms, and then I guess what we're talking about is street styles, club styles, and funk styles.
Yes.
And all of them, and it's hard to put them all under one label, which we'll get to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I guess we can just accept that when we say hip hop, we mean
What we're talking
all
about.
the above, all
Yes.
of these dance forms.
Exactly. And that is the first thing I think that a lot of people wouldn't know is that it's not one style. And they just, there's so many different areas that people can be kind of researching and finding some understanding of that they maybe aren't at this stage.
There's so much, and there's so much in all of them as well. Like
Yeah.
you could spend a year on each one, you could spend a lifetime on each one.
Yeah.
Because some people only do one of those dance forms and spend a lifetime dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And each one has its whole culture and history and names and
Well, let's go through. Let's chuck some names out because I think at least there'd be a few things that came up that someone would be like, oh, I thought it was just whatever.
Yeah.
What's that? And maybe research a bit about that stuff.
Do you want to hit us with the funk styles?
Well, before I get into styles, I think it's important to know that hip hop is actually a culture. So there's 5 main elements in hip hop. The first one is writing, which is graffiti.
Yeah.
MCing, obviously like rapping. DJing, which is turntables. Fourth one is dance, but it's actually breaking. Breaking
Yes.
is the very first style of hip hop.
Yeah.
And it's like the origin of hip hop. So, that's like where everything was built off.
Yeah.
And then the last one is knowledge. So knowledge is about just sharing the culture, sharing different perspectives within the culture. So that's like the 5 main elements of hip hop.
Yeah. That's a good place to start. Yeah.
Hip hop dance actually formed of 2 different styles. It was in New York. It was the Harlem jazz dancers doing dance styles like the Charleston, Lindy Hop, dance styles like that. And then it was also the Latino community doing salsa steps like the mambo and the rumba. So these 2 communities came together in clubs and they were dancing together. And so when you put the dance styles like Charleston and the rumba together, that's when you get a breaking rock step. That's how hip hop dance actually formed.
Right.
Yeah, and then so from there it was kind of built on into 2 different directions. In the Bronx, breaking was formed, breakdance, and then in Brooklyn it was like the jerk, which was nowadays it's called like more of a freestyle dance, and also electric boogie, which is another style of hip hop. So yeah, that's like the origin.
The
of
origins.
hip-hop. Yeah.
Great place to start. We should have started there straight away, but that's good.
That's just
Yeah.
the beginning.
Yeah, that's just the beginning,
very
right?
beginning.
Because then some people even say there's like another 4 elements, which I only found out this year, and some people say in addition to those 5, there's also beatboxing, street language, street fashion, and street entrepreneurialism.
Wow.
And that's there's a website called Temple of Hip Hop, which was founded by KRS-One, the MC, I think, and he goes into like that whole world, and it's a very spiritual perception of hip hop as a culture and spirituality, essentially. Yeah. So it can go so deep.
Yeah.
So we'll figure out how deep.
Let's
we
get
go.
deep. Let's get deep.
Yes.
I don't
think it's about
everyone's ready for
education.
that deep.
Well, look, and I think that's something we need to understand is like, a lot of our audience is going to be dancers, teachers, parents from the more commercial world of dance, that jazz, ballet, contemporary, musical theatre kind of worlds. And I think we need to kind of make them aware that there's so many elements that they should be researching, that they can be learning about if they do want to develop their understanding of hip hop dance.
Yeah, because some people, if it's a taste thing, if someone watches one of these dance forms and they don't like that one specifically, say they're watching a krumper and they think, oh, I don't like hip hop. After that, they could then watch a whacker. Also, so some of the forms, so krump, New York, pretty sure it's New York. Started dance.
It's actually from the West Coast.
West Coast,
Yeah,
I'm
in
sorry.
LA,
Okay,
yeah.
it's a strike for me. Sorry, tie-dyes. Whacking is West Coast. Vogue is New York. You've got house, I've heard, started in Chicago.
Yeah.
You've got Chicago footwork. You've got dancehall, which Brock Up turned into dancehall in Jamaica. Flexing is another West Coast dance, which was inspired by Brock Up and dancehall as well, mixed with waving and gliding, which is more West Coast. You got bone breaking, which is another. They're also from Brock Up and flexing and dancehall. So it's a little family tree of dance forms.
Yeah.
They all influence each other heaps. They all borrow a lot of each other's moves.
I think that's what people don't understand when someone says hip hop's a culture.
Yeah.
Because people go jazz dance or ballet dance.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and then that's it. That's it. That's the style. But
Yeah.
But when someone says, "Can you teach hip hop?" You're like, "What am I going to teach?
What do you want me to do?"
Like,
yeah.
Is half the lesson going to be a history lesson from me, or is it going to be just
Do you want the
moves?
culture? Do you
Well,
want
this is like
foundation?
Sisqo. How long have you been teaching, roughly,
Oh,
at dance studios?
at dance studios,
Yeah.
probably around 15 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So for me, like jumping completely in the opposite direction, me as an adjudicator and as a dance teacher that travels around the country, what I'm seeing is just like the complete opposite end of that a lot of the time. Again, like we always try to point out on the show, we're not talking about everyone. There's always exceptions. But a lot of the time, judging and doing things like that, you're seeing street jazz or just jazz with a few like kind of popular key moves in there, and that's it. And a lot of the time, it's maybe the studio owner or the jazz teacher that's just doing the hip hop class. So, and then like you said, as someone that even does know what they're talking about, you're being asked a lot of the time, come and do a hip hop class or a guest hip hop class. What can you really? How deep can you delve into that world?
I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. When I started teaching hip hop, I just did what was popular because that was giving me work.
Yeah.
And that was my fault. And I'm like, I admit that 100%. As I got older and realized that it was kind of just hip hop dance was just a cake with frosting and no foundation. Then I started to really push what I knew knowledge-wise to my students. Even if it's just names of moves or where the moves came from, at least they're learning something.
Yeah.
Because there's not much I can do if I'm teaching a 1 hour guest class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that 1 hour.
And you know that a lot of the time the studio owner is just wanting them to have a great time and learn something that they kind of like what they know, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
But
I think that's where the problem lies, is that you're hired on your finished product. You're not hired on what came before it. Whereas if you're a ballet teacher, you're hired for what you know. You have to know this. You have to have the certificate. You have to do all of this stuff before you can teach it. Whereas like with hip hop, like anyone who's got 10,000 followers on Instagram can teach it. Like you just assume that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where the translation is lost, I think.
Yes.
This actually happened like already from like the late 80s. Mr. Wiggles, he's a pioneer in hip hop dance. So this is what he explained. He explained that in the mid 80s or early 80s, artists, like singing artists, would hire choreographers to come in to choreograph backup dancers for their music video and things like that. And what happened was they asked jazz dancers or street jazz dancers to come in to choreograph these music videos back in the
For hip-hop
80s.
artists, yeah.
And then they ask, oh, can you do hip-hop? And then they're obviously going to say yes because they
Yeah.
want that money
Yeah.
without knowing the like the foundation behind hip-hop. So they'll take on that and then gets translated into their music videos, which then gets popularized around the whole world, and then people see, oh, that's actually hip-hop. And then that's what happened in hip-hop in studios in LA. Studios like Millennium, they started teaching what they do, street jazz, under the name hip-hop. And then everyone started copying LA.
Wow. Yeah.
So then it
Massively.
became a global thing.
It started that long ago.
Very long time, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because as well, dance is a visual art form, so people look at it and you can't see, unless you're like, you understand what's behind it, you can't see what's behind it.
Yeah.
Unless you already know something about it and you don't know what you don't know. Like, you don't know
Yeah.
what there is.
You're
You don't know
teaching
how
them.
much there is you don't know, which came up in, I think Zoe Marsh said something about that in a recent seminar that was set up similar to this. So it's a matter of seeing something and taking the initiative to learn more, which would have been up, even in the 80s, it would have been up to them to take that initiative.
Yeah. So I guess there's a debate whether it's up to going back into dance studio format. Is it the studio owner's responsibility to find and do their research about the styles that they're offering at their studio and find the people that actually know what they're talking about in those areas, or is it also, or instead, the role of the teacher or the choreographer on that gig to be like, okay, yes, I can teach your class, but I'm no expert in this field. Can we call it something else, or can we call it jazz funk or something like that? Because the reality is people need money, right? Yeah. So they are going to go, oh, can someone, even if it starts as, can someone cover my hip-hop class tonight? Everyone's going to go, yes, and there's going to be a variety of levels of actual kind of knowledge of hip-hop dance in there, right? So
I covered a lyrical class once. And I was 18.
And it happens, right?
I was 18. I had no idea what I was doing.
And it happens,
gave it a go.
but I think it's most common in hip-hop. And so I mean, in your opinion, is it up to both of them, or is it one more than the other? Whose responsibility
I think it's both of them, to be honest. People are gold diggers, so like whatever they do to just get money, they'll try and take it.
Yeah.
And that's like the industry in dance, I guess. Everyone's, fighting for a job all the time and things like that. And one thing is that street jazz or whatever the style they're doing is an actual dance style. It's not a fake dance style.
Yeah.
It's a created dance style. It was actually in the early 80s, Michael Jackson would hire choreographers like Michael Peters, and he specifically says street jazz because he fused a lot of the early street dance movements with like Bob Fosse's movements together.
Oh, cool.
And that's how he built his choreography. So when you see music videos like Beat It in Michael Jackson, if you watch the movement, it's Michael is doing movements from Bob Fosse as well as some street dance. It's like mixed together. And I feel like that term street jazz wasn't spread enough for people to know that that's street jazz, and people just thought that's hip hop instead. And
that's so true. It's just that little shift of calling it
even in
what it is.
The first productions of West Side Story, they used the latest street dancers and jazz dancers, and they built choreography that works for both of them. But people obviously don't know that, and they just assumed it was hip hop or
see what it is.
I think going back as well to who is more to blame or the other, or who should take more initiative, I would want to say it's the latter, because as I've grown older, I know dance studio owners have so much to do. I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And focusing on each, it would be very hard to expect any dance studio owner to know so much about every dance form. So if I want to say, if I was a dance studio owner, I would take advantage of learning how many types of street dance forms there are and be like, oh, I'm going to pick exactly which one I want and find someone to do exactly that. And then you can like actually curate your students more specifically, instead of just throwing different types of hip-hop, street jazz, JFH, club dance teachers at them and getting a mix. So I think it's more up to the teachers and choreographers because they have that little bit much more time, I think, than a dance studio owner
Yeah, that's
who's running
true.
a business.
And I guess, like in any business, you're trusting, I guess, people's honesty and going, are you an expert in this field? Because I'm a ballet teacher by focus and I've started a studio. When I say, can you teach my hip hop class? I'm also saying, are you qualified to do this, right? Because, yeah, right? And so, I guess being a studio owner, I didn't want to go down that path, but it's interesting to hear your perspective on that, because I think a lot of studio owners out there are going to be like, well, I just trusted that they told me the truth, and that when they said I can do it, they knew what they were talking about.
And I think teachers who don't take this sort of initiative can take advantage of take advantage of the studio owners, because the studio owners will also only see the end product and be like, sweet, hip hop class.
Yeah.
Like, don't know what happened in between that
Yeah.
hour or whatever.
I guess at the same time, they do have to take some responsibility if they get to a certain size, or if they're kind of a larger studio. I guess we have to question: am I getting this person when they do have a pick of anyone they want? Am I getting this person because they are popular on social media, or because they're whatever, or are they the right person to be educating my students in that field, right? Because I know enough about hip hop to know that this person's going to do a really fun combo, right? And then there's other teachers that might be more beneficial to actually teach them foundation or actually the techniques behind hip hop and all the styles within hip hop.
Especially this generation, one thing that really got to me, I was hired to do a workshop one time, and they didn't tell me they hired a videographer. So what I did was I taught foundations, the whole class, foundations, history.
Yeah.
So I don't have a routine at the end.
Yeah.
So the videographer walks in and I'm thinking, okay, he's probably just going to film me talking or whatever. And then the person that hired me comes up to me and is like, where's the combo? Where's the routine? I'm thinking, well, first of all, you never asked for one.
Yeah, you asked me to
Second
teach
of all,
hip-hop.
you told me to teach a hip-hop class, so that's what I did. That's what I provided.
And I think it's the knowledge, and we do a social media episode here as well, because it's the norm now, and that's almost like, oh, we were expecting that to happen because everyone does that. But I guess communication is important, and education. That's what this episode's about. It's educating everyone out there to actually know the questions they should be asking, or communicate with that teacher. What do I actually want from you in this lesson? Is so important.
Which is hard. It's understandably hard as well, just knowing how fast-paced the dance teaching thing is. Like, a lot of the time it's like, hey, can you teach classes in 4 hours? Or it's a last-minute thing a lot of the time. So, I wouldn't be super hard, but I would want to, stress that much more conversation happens.
Yeah.
Just more conversation before just being like, teach a class.
Yeah, totally. Because in reality, if you're going to break it down, if you were, you've kind of got your ballet class and your technique class and your contemporary class and jazz class to kind of to learn those different elements of this one world, and then you're cramming the foundation, the technique side of it, the knowledge and education side of it, and combos and style and everything into a 1 hour class. So it's like, it's impossible to really teach kids, even if you teach them every week, every element of hip hop, give them that focus. Yeah.
You can give them little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I think this also leads to when you go to a studio and then they label class jazz or commercial jazz, then it's pretty obvious that commercial jazz is more going to be choreography, jazz is going to be more jazz technique or whatever, whereas hip-hop is just hip-hop, and people just expect either one of them, and it's not separate. So I think one thing that has to happen, or doesn't have to happen, but I think should happen, is that the choreography side of it should be called something else, whether it's commercial hip-hop or street jazz or whatever the term is, and then hip-hop should be hip-hop on its own, because technically hip-hop, the roots are the breaking, and these days I see studios that do separate hip-hop class and breaking class. So technically, as hip-hop pioneers, we'll all say hip-hop class should be breaking 101, like starting
It
from
should be a
breaking.
theory class.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah,
should be a theory
yeah.
class.
starting from there. And a lot of even full-time schools will teach contemporary dance history or like ballet history, jazz history. We know people like Bob Fosse because we study those people.
Yeah.
Or whether it's Martha Graham from contemporary
Like
like
school, yeah.
But with hip hop, no one knows the
No.
pioneers, and hip hop
There's
is
so
only
many- there's so
40
many
to
fun
50 years
ones.
old, whereas ballet is like 500 years old,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
study that.
Sure.
A lot of them are
Hip-hop is
still
50.
alive.
Yeah, it's like
You could get them on a Zoom call.
Totally.
Literally.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so true.
blows my mind. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't understand why people would ask us to teach without teaching it some sort of foundation.
Yeah.
Because, like, we would never say yes to a ballet class. If someone said, "Can you teach a ballet class?" None of
Yeah,
us
yeah.
would be like, "Sweet money." Do you know what I mean? But
think
because
it's-
it's that
Yeah.
commercial side, that choreography part that people choose to teach, then we get lost in translation. We get left behind.
I think you could get away with calling it a choreography class if you like. You could say, because this came up recently earlier in the year about labels and labels
Yes.
for classes, and the point was brought up that if Neven myself created if I taught a class, if I taught a foundation class, I would call it, if I taught like hip hop, it would be Neven's hip hop class, and that would be expected that it's hip hop foundation. If I taught a choreography class using a bunch of different stuff that I know, maybe there's a little bit of waving, maybe there's some hip hop, maybe there's some light feet, probably not, but that would be called Neven's choreography class because it's just a mishmash. It's not
Of everything, yeah.
The purpose of the class is to teach choreography, regardless of where I got stuff from. I'll touch on it, I'll reference it, but I'm not intending to teach these styles through the choreography. I'm intending to teach the choreography through these styles. And then the third option would be, I'm going to create a choreography purely off of hip hop foundation, like a sequence.
Yes.
And then it could be Neven's hip hop choreography class. And that could be like an option for labeling such classes,
Yes.
which came out of a lot of conversation in America early in the year because of the word urban.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because urban, I fully took the urban label earlier when I was teaching more often
Yeah.
because it was safe.
'Cause-
But I think this
It's
is
an
one
umbrella.
place where it's the whole better safe than sorry doesn't apply as
Sure.
much here.
Yeah.
Because if everyone plays it safe, then no one's going to hear about any of the culture, any of the references, any of anything, and it'll all disappear.
So I guess that debate goes deeper than just one area as to why it shouldn't be kind of umbrellaed under that word.
Yeah.
There's so many elements to that. Yeah.
There's so many elements. Because the urban thing was also referenced in music. People would say that people started just labeling black music, urban music, and that was obviously a big issue there.
Yeah.
And similar in dance, people would use the word urban because they were scared to call it hip hop because they might have gotten called out because they weren't doing
What?
hip hop.
Yeah.
But then if they were teaching hip hop and using the word urban, then people are learning hip hop not knowing about hip hop.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but there's a line right in the middle
Yep.
that I think we can reach,
Definitely.
and it just takes conversation
Yeah.
like this.
I think explaining to a studio owner, I would say the same reason you would tell your kids that just came for jazz or jazz and contemporary, the way you'd explain to them why ballet is important, why they should take that class, is the same reason that you should find teachers or at least ask your qualified teacher to teach foundation as at least an element of the hip hop class. I think that's kind of easier for them to understand because I think a lot of studio owners' understanding is it's just this cool new style that is slightly different to jazz, and that's as far as they know about it. So explaining it in that way, I think firstly they get that there is always a technique to anything, any style of dance that people do, but then it's finding the people that can actually have knowledge enough to be teaching that. So there's people out there like you guys within your circles would know a huge amount of people that are qualified to teach hip hop, foundation or those kind of elements of hip hop dance. How can we connect studio owners to those people, and have them kind of value those teachers? How can they be connected better?
I was thinking about this because there's so many, especially Co knows way more than me, I'm sure, especially in Sydney. But I was thinking the reason that if teachers, like say a teacher uses Instagram to find teachers, because people do.
Yep,
totally.
A lot of people do, yeah.
Because you've got the studio community and you've got the street community.
Yes.
And the studio community will often go to full-time. They'll learn about social media. They'll learn about... They went to full-time, they're probably going to try to become a professional dancer. So they're going to go on Instagram and market themselves and sell themselves, which is their job.
Yes.
Myself as well. But street dancers will often dance for fun.
Yes.
And so they're
Join
not
a crew
going to as often go on Instagram and be like, hey, this is me. A lot of them aren't on Instagram at all. Some of the best. Shazam, I think, got rid of Instagram.
Yeah.
Shazam. Hire Shazam. He's so good. He just got rid of Instagram. But I think that's one reason that... Because I was thinking, why is that an issue? I think that's one part of it. But it just takes reaching out. I'm sure anyone watching could message any of us and we could point you to people. I'd be more than happy to. I'm sure everyone else would.
Yeah.
I know a guy in America who is very closely linked to a lot of different street styles, and he said to the Australian community that if you want information about anything, you can just message him and he'll just push you in all the right directions.
People are willing to help,
Because the people involved are passionate about it and passionate about sharing it.
Yeah. And there's information out there on, even if you just want to watch and learn and develop some understanding or appreciation, there's battles all the time. There's crew competitions. There's like so many things that if people just wanted to, they could be a spectator and just go and watch and learn. There's so much out there.
You could have seen Co smoke me like 5 years ago in Parramatta, and you were like this big, and I was this big, and you still smoked me.
What was that for?
It was just a battle. It was called a Granny Smith battle or something.
Yeah.
You and Jaya against me and
Right.
Geordie Grant. It was hilarious.
And then you guys did one more recently. Was it for Red Bull or something?
Oh yes, Co won.
Co won that one.
Red Bull Dance Your Style. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things happening. Like, where else can people find resources to, I guess, learn more about?
Well, there's at the moment in Sydney there are two main street dance studios. Which is Crossover Dance Studios, which has been running for a long time. Same as Dance School Studios. So those
Dance Cool, yeah.
those two studios have been running for a really long time, over 10
And they're
years
all
or
like
so.
open class based,
They're
right?
all
So
open
anyone
class
can come.
based, and it's all like you get the most of street dance there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their students know that what they want to learn in there. Like, I got asked to teach a choreography class or an urban class at the time, and it just didn't go anywhere because it's not what those what those students want. So
They got their base, yeah.
yeah, they got what they want there, and
then, they're
all
not
the
gonna-
teachers
yeah.
are quality.
Cool.
Like, you might not have heard of any of them,
That's
but
good.
like
Yeah.
what
But-
they teach is ridiculous.
And then it takes studio owners accepting that it's okay for their students to go out and do an open class like that if it's something they don't offer, right? So I think that's an important part. And kids also valuing that, not going just to those classes that are really popular, but going, actually don't know anything about house. I've never even heard of it. Or I've never done it, pure locking class. If there's that class there, as if you wouldn't go to that class.
Beginner,
Yeah.
absolute beginner.
Be a beginner.
intermediate,
Yeah.
Advanced.
People are
It was-
scared to be a beginner,
The
yeah.
first classes I went to were a crossover. I was 16, and it was not intimidating at all. Like, I think, and you would have been training there from way younger, I'm pretty sure.
I first went to Crossover when I was 10.
Yeah.
So
don't
for
feel
me
like,
it was
my
scary.
kid's
It
not,
was like a
my kid's not
Yeah.
old enough. I wait till they're an adult for them to go into the city. You're like, it's a very safe
Yeah,
space.
my first classes are actually at Dance School.
Yeah.
The very, very, very like old one. The building doesn't even
the
exist
first,
anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
The first building.
Yeah, so
And as a young dancer growing up at a commercial dance school, I didn't know these classes existed.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
it's-
I think I do wonder about your generation and what you guys knew when you were our age and what you saw.
well, for
Because
me,
now
like,
there's the internet, and now
it's all there.
it's more interlinked. Like,
yeah.
I know,
But I
people
guess
that
with all the
sings-
right information, there's also comes enough wrong information
Yes.
also on those networks. So, but for me, like, I started training when there was at most kind of commercial dance schools no hip hop class. It didn't exist. and then I kind of was becoming a teenager, I guess, when it started to become a regular class, and this was at Brent Street, so it was a large studio. I think even a lot of studios were even later than that. So I've kind of seen, and there was definitely a range. We had so many different teachers.
Who was teaching it? Was it Jet?
When were you there?
We had Juliet Verne.
Yeah.
So we had like a range of teachers, some from like pure hip hop background, some that between teachers that they didn't know who to get, and it was someone that maybe was just a jazz teacher first and they'd learn a little bit at the same studio. But we had a range, but we definitely had some people that at the time we didn't know there was any difference. It was all foreign to us. But the teachers were around. The teachers that knew what they were talking about were around. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that my first classes there were at Brent Street were 2008.
Yeah.
I think that's when I first started teaching at Brent Street.
Yeah, I had you there, I'm sure.
I was brought in because Marco Panzik was on So You Think. So they needed a replacement. So Marco was actually teaching hip hop.
Yeah.
And
He was one of our first hip hop teachers. Well, yeah, he was one of the regular teachers towards the end of my training there. Who I think, he would be able to admit, like myself, who also taught hip hop for a while, wasn't from that focused background initially. But it's the start of that thing where we're all like, oh yeah, to us that's what we learned.
Yeah.
We learned a bit of it at dance school. Now I can teach it, but there's so much more. It goes so much deeper.
Don't know what you don't know.
But yeah, I was brought in, and I taught regularly for, I think it was 2 years, and then I was only brought in as the hip hop guest teacher, because then it turned into less what I was teaching, and then turned into more like commercial stuff. And then if they wanted the rap music guy, that was me. Like I brought in the hard hitting stuff. That's what it wasn't even hip hop. Oh, can you do that hard stuff, like the hard hitting stuff that you do? Okay, yeah, sweet.
And the hard thing is a lot of studios, every class wants an Estedford routine at the end of that term or halfway through the year. So that becomes an issue that I think goes broader than even just the hip hop world, where a lot of teachers are like, how can I teach these kids technique or precision or performance quality or something if I'm just kind of pushing out routines? So it's
I think there's something to be said in how much these dance forms techniques can help other dance forms as well.
Yeah,
there's
totally.
so much. There's almost all of it it's all related from ballet, jazz, tap. There's so much relevance to so many different dance forms in this world as well.
Everything helps everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. People go, oh, I'm not a hip hop dancer. Or I want to be in a contemporary company one day or something. It's like, but if you take those classes, you're going to learn so much more, a bigger dance vocabulary that you can apply to everything that you do.
I think us three, like we know the benefits of going the other way. Like we all like love hip hop and that's where we are and that's what we dance and that's who we are as people. But then like doing the other styles has helped our hip hop dance or our dancing, our personal dancing, like grow 100 times what we thought it could.
Definitely.
Like I never thought I would have been in like a contemporary piece or whatever, but I've done it.
Yeah.
And or doing ballet has helped me like know which muscles to engage when I'm doing popping.
Yep.
Or which ones I can engage when I'm at certain angles.
Yeah.
So like I think like
do everything.
Do everything. Know everything. Like just know what you're talking about if you're going to teach hip hop.
Yes.
Because I would again I don't think I wouldn't teach a jazz technique class. Like that's just not. I can teach a jazz choreo class. But I wouldn't be able to teach a jazz technique class.
I think what a lot of teachers would find, if they were honest with studio owners, if they said, oh, look, I can come and teach, but just so you know, I don't come from that background. I've got limited understanding of that world. I can come do a combo that's whatever. But if you were honest with them, a lot of the time they'd be like, oh, that's fine. You're not going to lose work over it, but at least you're doing your part and you're doing your responsibility to kind of go, okay, I can come and do that, but what are you trying to get out of this 1 hour class if I'm regular, Because in reality, I can't teach your kids this, and this part of it. But if that's not what you want, it's up. That's their choice. But at least you've been honest with them about it.
Yeah.
And then I guess the common thing we're all bringing up is the title of it. I guess that would be a good start to. The hard thing with that, though, I guess, is
There's a few.
There's a lot of hard things with that because if dance studios are having the issue of keeping up with each other. It is a business. You got people moving studios. You got people that move locations or whatever, and they're like, oh, but at the last studio I did tap exams. Do you have those here? At my last studio there was a hip hop class. I'm looking on your timetable. I can't see it because now that one studio is doing the right thing and they're calling it whatever, or they're separating into the genres of hip hop. That's one issue.
Yeah, it's trusting your. If I was to start an open class studio, kind of like Duty that Matthew Mizyed started, and I had to put out the schedule and just hope for students because you don't have any yet, so you're just hoping for someone to come in, and you named every class after the name of the teacher, it would be hard.
Yeah.
But if you had the right teachers and you could say this is Julia's ballet class, Ken's jazz class, Sisqo's hip hop class, and then it's up to the students to go and look at it. And I remember when I first went and trained in London, I had to do that. I forget which studio it was, but there was just names and not styles, and I had to go look at the names.
Research.
Yeah, actually I had to go research with the internet. And I could see exactly what I wanted to learn from what was online, which requires things being online. So there's always
And I think the other thing with that, and I guess it's hard when we're talking about sacrificing people's work, but within every hip hop teacher, they specialize in certain genres of hip hop. So I think for me, I've always been a big fan of cycling through different hip hop teachers for that reason. I guess there is the challenge of kind of swapping too much, where they're kind of not really being able to delve into deep into what they're talking about. But I guess if you do that, you're at least giving them exposure to different focuses. Like, do you feel like within the three of you, there's certain genres of hip hop that you don't specialize in, that you maybe don't know a lot of?
Definitely.
Yes.
I know, not that I know nothing, but I know less about locking.
Yeah.
Just because for me, it wasn't something I really connected to dancing.
Yeah.
Dancing wise, I love watching it, but for me, doing it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really connect with it like I do popping or breaking, which I don't do anymore because I'm old.
That's another thing as well with, I think people don't have an understanding of what hip-hop is and what the umbrella actually is. Because technically, dance styles like popping and locking is not hip-hop. It came from a different generation, a different side of America.
Right.
Hip-hop was born in the Bronx in New York. Popping and locking was from the West Coast, from LA, California. And they were doing that already in the 60s.
Yeah.
Hip-hop was born in 1973. Before the word hip-hop was actually it was called rocking. So everything you did, the music and all of that, it was always called, you do a down rock, you do up rock, all of that. The term hip-hop was only put until 1981 when an MC, Africa Bambaataa, was asked, what is this culture? And then the first thing he thought of was hip-hop, because he couldn't say rocking because rocking was already taken from rock music culture. So everyone in the rock music culture would say rocking.
Yeah.
And rocking out, doing all that. So the reason why hip-hop was a term was because MCs back in the day would always, to gather the crowd, they would always have a rhyme that goes hip-hop, chew-up, da-da, da-da, and they always use the word hip-hop. And the word hip-hop actually has a meaning as well. So there's two meanings. First one, the word hip actually comes from some part in Africa. I think it was Senegal. The language they speak there, the word actually comes from a word called hippie, and the meaning of that is to understand or to to know. That's the meaning of it. So, and then hop, for them meant to party or to dance. So the people that did hip hop was supposed to mean that people understood what they're doing and like what was going on at the time, so they're aware of what's the trend, and that's the dance they're doing. So that's like celebrating what they know at the time. So the term hip hop was actually like kind of put together from those African terms because of African Americans that lived in the Bronx at the time.
Yeah, right.
And then also the other term was in early 50s America, they used the word hip as a meaning of like being cool.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
people will say like, oh, I'm hip,
Yeah.
instead of being cool. And then hop was also meant to party. So they also put that together as a cool party because hip hop is a party dance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the first, like, when hip hop originated, it was in 1973, August 11th,
Yeah.
1520 Cedric Avenue. DJ Kool Herc brought in a set of DJs for his younger sister's 16th birthday. That's the birth of hip hop.
Wow.
For the birthday.
Yeah.
So you
You
can't
are
say
like
there's
a-
no dance theory in hip hop.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like
So
an
much.
encyclopedia of,
Yeah, yeah.
of hip hop. But how old did you say? You're 20?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm 20, yeah.
20. So, like, you've done your research. You've learned, right? So there's no excuse. Like, I guess teachers out there, I'm not saying stop calling yourself a hip hop teacher. I'm saying if you want to teach hip hop dance and if you are given that responsibility, you know, by a studio or just by your reputation, just do your research. Just start learning. Keep going to class. You know, the information's out there. And I think that's why at the time, through the lack of hip hop teachers, when I first got out, people wanted me to teach hip hop, and I was young, and I had some amazing teachers like yourself that did teach me a lot, but it was over a very short, it was 1 hour a week. So I really kind of was doing it for most of the classes I taught until the point where I realized, hang on, there's so much more in this, and the work I was doing as a professional performer was all musical theatre, jazz, commercial, and I just went, you know what, I'm just going to stop teaching hip hop for a while. If you do want to do that, that's fine. But at 20, if you can know all this, you know, then just at least keep learning, keep growing. And
I think we touched on it before. I think if someone's going to ask you to teach a hip hop class, it should be a theory class.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, I don't even think there should be dancing in it. I think it should be a hip hop class. If they want to teach you if they want you to teach a dance class, they say teach a dance class.
yeah,
I think that would be much beneficial for everybody. Though I guess like hip hop theory teachers are going to be very few and far between.
Exactly.
Or you're going to have to do a test to do it.
yeah. I guess even teachers like yourselves, though, maybe there's a question. I know I've had teachers that know a lot about certain foundations that have just assumed that I wanted them to do combos because that's what everyone wants.
I assume that often.
Yeah.
If I'm invited in.
Yeah.
But I
When
guess-
I choreograph, I very rarely choreographed it with hip hop moves.
Yes.
I do.
Yeah,
else.
yeah. When I hire you for things, it's
So we make assumptions a lot of the time.
exactly. And I think if you ask the questions, there'd be occasional times where teachers would be like, studio owners would say, yeah, actually, spend a bit of time, maybe half at least. Maybe I'd love you to spend half the class because they've never done that before. I asked the teacher last year to focus for a whole half a year on foundation because I'm like, the kids have learned elements of it within class, but they've never spent the whole class on that before. So there is exceptions. If you give them the option, maybe they'll go, oh, maybe I will have you do a bit of that in the class, you know?
And there's opportunity as well, because a lot of this history, it's all over the place, but a lot of it is online. I remember I learnt a lot of it
Yeah.
off Mr. Wiggles' website, which I mentioned before, and it's like wigzee.biz,
Yeah.
WIGZEE.biz, and I think he's moved a lot of it to Patreon now, which is like $3 a month, I'm pretty sure.
I'm a part of the Patreon.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. And there's so much there.
Yeah.
There's so much on it. I remember that's where I learnt almost everything I knew at the beginning was off that one website because I had taken his class and he was like, check my website out. And I was like, yes. And there's so much there. And it's all very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Like it's quite... You get into it.
Yeah.
Elite Force Crew have a website as well talking about their version of history because there's always different perspectives. A lot of them align, some don't. Elite Force are credited with like kind of being the first to put hip hop dance party grooves together to create a form of hip hop freestyle dance.
Yep.
More in the 80s, and they have their take on it all online. So if you're a hip hop teacher, you can just sit your kids down for a class, get the projector out. I don't know if people still have projectors. You could just go together. It's like, let's read together.
Yeah.
Like reading a book.
Yeah,
and
sure.
you're like, what does you reckon that means, kids? Oh, that sounds fun. Oh, let's try what this guy said. I don't know. I think, the internet's beautiful.
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
There's so many resources on Instagram as well, just because I know that's probably the most popular at the moment, aside from TikTok. There's a lot of people just accounts that will talk a lot about these things because they're a part of their lifestyles.
Yeah, maybe we'll actually write a few in
For
the
sure. Yeah.
Click below.
Yeah.
Below.
Like,
What do you call it? I should know this.
Footnotes.
The description below. Yeah.
Footnotes, isn't it?
I should know.
Down
that. We'll write some in the description below.
your caption.
Oh, the caption.
Because this is all the caption.
We're
Yeah.
not cutting that.
We're not cutting that. That's it. Yeah, because this is, we're always going to be posing questions on this show, but I also want to give them ways to improve and ways to grow and answer those questions. So I think we're doing that. Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
which is good.
with technology, that's what I took advantage of, really, because like me being the new generation coming up, obviously I wanted to
using
learn.
it, yeah.
And that was like the easiest way to learn. And also, I mean, I've traveled to countries myself just so that I can learn as well. So, like Mr. Wiggles, I know him now, so I'm in contact with him. So whenever I have something that I wanted to ask, I'll just hit him up, and like he'll be there. And it's crazy. Like hip hop is probably the most diverse culture and diverse kind of dance style as well that has grown so much. Like it's only 50 years old roughly. Ballet is what, centuries old, and hasn't changed as much as hip hop has in the last 50 years.
It's influencing everything. Like,
Literally,
it is, yeah.
like
everything.
what's an Olympic sport now?
Yep.
Breakdance.
It's in musical theatre shows. It's like,
Hamilton.
yeah,
Anything.
it's everywhere.
And people just assume that when you're talking about it, you're talking about gangster rap and you're talking about
People in crews
that type of thing. But you look around and it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And people just still not like understanding.
And that's why it's important, because I think we're talking a lot about the responsibility of the older generation, but students need to understand that it's important because it's going to be in everything. No matter where you want to end up, it's going to keep spreading because it's amazing.
I remember when I used to get booked as the hip hop guy. Like
You can still be the hip hop guy.
No, I'm still the hip hop guy, but I mean, like, there was a specific. We need a hip hop guy.
On the
like,
gig, yeah.
But now that everyone knows it, I'm just a dancer, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, that was definitely a thing. Hey, Sisqo, can you come and do this show with us? We need a hip hop guy. Like, that was an actual thing.
For the
a phone
solo
call I used to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got token.
Yeah, I got tokened hard. But I mean, now because it's the like. You could say it's the most popular commercial style.
Yeah.
Without people understanding, obviously, what we've been talking about, the foundation of it.
Yeah.
But it influenced the commercial world and
Massively.
became what it is.
Think about TikTok. Like
Yeah.
everyone is dancing now because of TikTok.
Yeah.
It's just such a
I love seeing
influence.
kids like in a break, if they go and do like a little TikTok together, and I see them doing like a dance move, and they're grooving, and I'm like, that's the most authentic groove I've seen you do.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing it because you want to do it with your friends.
Yeah.
That's hip hop.
Where do you guys stand on, like, because grooves have become such a huge part of how, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but commercial dance studios can enter a hip hop section by kind of doing the stuff they know and then putting like a few grooves in there.
I will smash schools for that.
I'm very big on that. When I adjudicate, I'm very big on calling out in a positive way, hopefully.
Yeah.
Explaining that like that's not enough to just enter that now in a hip hop section, and it takes people standing up for the culture and actually kind of saying that, I guess. But where do grooves come from originally, and like where are they finding these steps? And I know that's another very broad question.
This is once again from Mr. Wiggles.
Yeah.
He explained that, well, first of all, the two main styles of hip hop is breaking and party rocking. So party rocking is what Elite Force crew kind of built up. It's pretty much a style based off a bunch of different party grooves. So back in the 80s, and 70s, they had TV shows called Soul Train, which was like from the West Coast. It was a TV show where a lot of soul and funk bands come on and play music.
Disco.
Yeah, and there'll be dancers on the show that come on and do these party dances. So you hear a lot of these party grooves, like most people know what the Cabbage Patch is, but this is a dance that's been going on for many, many years. It's it's a very, very old school dance, and there's so many different types of party dances, and it's just all being created back from like the 70s, 80s from that kind of music. So back then, everyone did those dances. It's just like people knowing what the nene is, or like like the whoa or whatever. That was part of the thing back then. Yeah, and it was just kept building on, and I think it comes from the James Brown was actually one of the biggest influences back then. It was James Brown had his own dance styles, like the James Brown Boogaloo or the Funky Chicken. Yeah. There's all these like the Robot, all these dance styles that people did, and then people would do that in clubs. So they would just spread around the clubs around the whole of the United States, and obviously America being a huge influencer to all the other countries, that it would spread around the world. Yeah. With party rocking, it was built off once again rocking. So rocking was a dance style before hip hop. Like I said at the start, it was from the Latino community doing salsa steps, and then the Harlem jazz dancers doing the jazz steps, like the Lindy Hop and stuff. So that was put together, and that's how rocking was built. So a lot of the movements that the Elite Force crew built up was from rocking as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and
but I guess now, like, grooves are becoming anything that's got a kind of groove or flow to it that could be kind of from any origin, right?
It's a rhythm.
I've heard
it's a rhythm. It's a feeling.
Discuss it as well.
Yeah.
They'd say any repetitive movement to music can be a groove. I think Lucy Doherty spoke at length about it once.
Definitely.
But you're saying like grooves in the jazzy routine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's. Yeah,
Do you mean what people consider hip hop grooves?
Yeah. Now, is there any kind of connection to actual hip hop dance in a lot of the grooves that people are kind of doing?
I think what gets lost in translation isn't the fact that they're grooving. It's like why they're grooving. People groove, and it's a natural thing. It's not supposed to be a choreographed thing.
Yeah.
So, when any of us hear music, we start doing this. Like that's just natural for anybody. That's your groove.
Yeah.
That's
it's
not.
a feel.
Yeah. So I think, like, yes, there are hip hop grooves. There's names and there's whatever, but I don't think
it should be such a big part of.
Yeah, I don't think in the Stedford world, I don't think it should be a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Like,
like
I
the
don't-
why. Yeah, the why is important.
The why. Yeah.
Because all these dance forms weren't ever meant to be done in a studio. No one that made them was like, can't have this get into the studio. So the why for all these dance forms
Or into
was
Instagram.
something else entirely cultural.
Yeah.
And then kids today in Australia, if you learn it in a studio, your why is immediately different.
Totally.
So it's always going to be hard to translate. So there's always going to be hurdles there. And it's a hard one for a teacher to get around.
Yep.
But I think it takes a good teacher to do it. But I guess you got to do it.
You got to do it.
You got to explain the why.
I think what Kova's saying, like, they're not grooves. We wouldn't call them grooves. We would call them party steps.
Party rocking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, or party dancing.
Party dance. Yeah.
That's what we would call them. Like, we wouldn't go like this step is a groove.
He's a groove. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we would call that party dancing.
Yep. What would you say to people that are kind of, because I do travel a lot all over the country, choreograph routines or adjudicate, what would you recommend to studios that are more regional, that maybe in their local area there isn't anyone that actually has a good understanding of hip-hop dance? What can they do to develop that style of dance in their studio, or even as a teacher, what can they do to kind of become that missing link in the area?
I think it's I hate to say this, but don't teach it. Don't teach it if it's just you.
Yeah, sure.
And it like bring somebody in. Like not every week. Get someone to do a workshop and get them
Yep.
to teach you or show you where the right path is.
Yeah.
Just because there's a hip hop section in something doesn't mean you have to enter it.
True.
Because I would never enter a ballet comp. Like, that's silly. Just because it's there.
Yeah.
Like,
But then, like, what happens when their competitor studio suddenly has a hip hop class, which isn't a hip hop class, and now they're having to compete? I think this is what's happening a lot.
And
Do you know what I
it's
mean?
integrity.
Yeah.
It's
It's a business, and
and it's also like either don't do it if you don't want to do it properly, but if you're a studio owner, you want your kids to learn hip hop, and you've got a teacher that wants to figure out hip hop, you can learn online.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have said that earlier, but then I met Benny Oldroyd, who's a legend, and he moved into Sydney from Dubbo last year, I think, and he came straight to like a buggy bumper jam, and he's sick, and he's got so much house and hip hop foundation.
Cool.
And I was like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Oh, I just moved from Dubbo."
Dubbo.
I was like, "You're so good!" Like, and I know they had teachers flown out, but he would just train his bum off.
Yeah.
In his bedroom. And
Info's out
that's how
Especially
I went to
now,
the beginning as well.
Especially now.
how the world is. There's so much online stuff.
It's harder, but you can do it.
Yeah, like I for one hated it. Like, I hated doing Zoom classes.
Oh, Zoom's another thing. Yeah, it's hard.
I hated learning.
Yeah.
I hated learning online, just because I vibe off people. Because I was never. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
what a lot of
cultural
teachers spoke about. Which we're going to definitely do an episode on.
But-
The
But
effects of,
there's so much stuff online.
Yeah, it is. It's there.
There's even documentaries on Netflix. There's everything. There's like.
And I guess if you don't know what's the right stuff, ask someone, because, like you said, there's people out there that are willing to help. You know, message one of you guys, message anyone, or look it up, and someone will tell you the right sites to go to and the ones to stay away from.
The creator of hip hop, like the guy who's created the whole culture, is still alive.
Wow.
Like, so,
Exactly.
you got no excuses. It's not like ballet where you have to
It's
track
filtered
back
down,
your roots,
yeah.
and he's still alive. Like, he's just living his own
You
life.
can
Like,
message
doing,
people.
They're out
it's
there.
all there. So
So true.
And
Yeah.
we're some of the last generations that will experience that.
exactly, yeah.
Very true.
Like, I was really looking forward to one day meeting and learning from Tyrone Proctor, who's one of the only last remaining founders of whacking as a dance form,
Yep.
because so few of them survived that era, and he only just passed away a couple months ago, last month.
It was last month. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, there's Victor Emmanuel, and I was like, is there anyone else from is he the last OG then? Is there anyone left for whacking that's from the original, like Diana Ross, like West Coast whackers?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're gonna
It's an important
see
time.
the original generation slowly fade away.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to put in the
hold
effort
it.
to keep the
Yeah.
names going.
That's so true.
So that was a heavy thought.
That's a heavy thought. I like it though.
Oh,
Actually huge, because whacking actually died off one time.
All right.
entirely.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the whole dance style was just
Yeah, it came
died
back
off
out of nowhere, didn't it?
Until a guy called Brian Green, he kind of brought it back into the culture. But without the OGs, then
And then I
things
guess you
can die
see,
off,
like,
yeah.
when styles do become popular out of nowhere, like I feel like whacking did, you've got then that issue of just people chucking their version of that into things, and then it's becoming, anytime anything does become popular again, it gets filtered very quickly by people that just see it and just copy it. I say you can take inspiration from things, but yeah, like you said, I guess actually, do proper research. Don't just watch one video on it, and have respect for that style that's got an origin, that's got pioneers and all that type of thing.
And be bad at it for a while.
Yeah.
I remember,
But be honest about that.
so Buggy Bumpers started learning light feet 2 years ago, and we sucked. We were doing it so wrong. And now we're doing it all right. And we're still, like, figuring it out.
You're
And,
always learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's taken, like, Kieran Kerr especially has he's invested so much in one-on-one privates with the founders of the style in New York, like weekly, maybe more than weekly. And he's putting his money and his time into that, so that because he hopes to share the culture here in Sydney and Australia. And he's got to keep hustling for the tick of approval for them to be like, you've got it, you can go teach it now.
Wow.
And he's just patiently learning and getting better at it
Yeah.
until...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talking
Takes
about
time.
where we are here, do you think, look, you've all travelled, where do you think we are on the world stage in terms like, is there similar problems all over the world, or are we kind of like...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's purely, again, like, I think it's mostly music videos' faults.
Mm-hmm.
Like any film clip will have dancers, and like those dancers will be hip hop dancers, but we wouldn't say hip hop dancers, but like
Yeah, there's a...
Justin Timberlake stuff isn't hip hop music.
Yeah.
But but his moves have a foundation in like
Inspiration
those
from it.
styles.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that became popular, and then that became the thing.
Yeah.
spreads.
Yeah.
And then it's interpreted in different ways as well. Like I know whacking, again, it took off in Japan big time. And the whackers in Japan got really good at it, and they kind of developed a different style because whacking was originally about the soul.
Yeah.
It was based off like taking the piss out of music theatre dancers and just living their best lives and
Yeah,
being
yeah.
jazzy without knowing how to do jazz, and just being super characterful. And a lot of the Japanese dancers that took it up just made it all about execution and sharpness,
Yeah.
strength.
Yes.
And a lot of the original whackers looked at Japan and thought, that's not what it's meant to be about. But now it's kind of like two different styles of
styles.
the same culture.
Yeah.
And it's good. I think there's a difference between like style evolving from respect for that style, knowledge of it, and then it kind of evolves. That's fine. You know, styles continue to evolve.
There's
in
always
every
going to be
world.
different like styles. There's different styles of hip hop again, that umbrella term, but like there's if you look at the way we dance, or the way that America dances to the way that French people dance,
Yeah.
or the way that like the big one is like how New Zealand dances compared to everybody else in the world.
Yeah.
Like so what is it, polyswag? They call it polyswag.
Polyswag.
Like that style was so different, but like
Yeah.
they had like Paris had a foundation. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
But then she created that style, and it became popular. So there's going to be different styles from all over the world, and
Yes.
but as long as those people know their foundations, it's never going to be an issue. Like there won't be an issue.
Yeah. I think it's also a question of how do we get them on the world stage? Like how do we get them in front of people? Because I think sometimes what's happening is the people that are booking the backup dancers or booking the dancers on the movie or the show, they're from that commercial world. They're going to the commercial dance agents and they're booking dancers, right? And then you've got just to their left these amazing, and you've got exceptions like Paris who are getting in front of people, but like a lot of them aren't ever translating into an agency or getting in front of people to actually be an option for people to actually use them, especially here.
I've had that problem. It's very hard for me to not be labelled a hip hop choreographer. I've pitched myself a lot to different artists and whatever, but they just want that commercial style, which I can do. That's not like it's not like we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just that's not our label.
Yeah,
And,
we're very good at labeling here.
Yeah, but we're all there. We're all reachable.
Yes, exactly.
I think I forgot what I was saying.
That's right.
That part's cut. That's not in there.
Yeah,
I went on a rant and lost it.
It
happens
comes back
every
to
time.
culture as well, though. For like Australia, like where's Australia in terms of these forms, cultures they're placing? I'm not sure. I think it's a big cultural thing in that Australia doesn't like hip hop as much as America. You go to America, you go to the Frogo shop, they're playing hip hop. You go to Macca's, they're playing hip hop. You get your hair done, they're playing hip hop. People like the culture of hip hop is so much more widely spread and appreciated, and people like it more over there.
Yeah.
And Australia, it's not just the hip hop or street funk club dance forms. It's the musicians.
Yep.
It's the painters. It's all the artists in that culture in Australia are struggling together because Australia in general doesn't like it as much yet. And I think it's slowly going up. It's hard to tell.
It's a growing culture at the moment.
Yeah.
Like we said, hip hop has only been around for 50 years or so, and for it to actually spread around the whole globe, it will take a long time. Just like with any other dance style.
I guess that's a good thing about internet and social media. There's a quicker way for that to get out there now.
Like within Sydney, I can comfortably say I pretty much know the entire street dance community. Like I can literally say hello to everyone and I'll know who they are. Whereas like a commercial dance scene or any other dance style, it's obviously been around for a really long time. So there's obviously many more people doing it and it's a bigger culture. So hip hop is still growing, like it's growing. So we have to be patient, but also at the same time we need to make sure that we respect the roots of where it came from. It's all about acknowledgement. It's not about you have to do it how it was done back then, because it's not about that. But it's about acknowledging where it came from, especially during these times with like the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Like hip hop it comes from black culture. So if you're labeling your classes doing hip hop and you're not doing hip hop, you're pretty much stealing someone's dance and doing it the wrong way. So I think it's all about you don't have to do it like they're doing, but it's just about acknowledging where it came from. And I think that's the most important.
And that is the teacher. Like even if you don't have enough time to teach the students about all of the culture and the background, if the teacher respects it and understands it and has an appreciation for it, that will translate even in just certain ways. That's so important. Such a good point.
No one ever said we have to do it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Or it wouldn't evolve. It wouldn't be where it's at.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't exploit a culture for your own bank account.
Aren't you behind the camera, bro?
Jordan should be in this episode.
Where's his voice coming from?
Jordan's very passionate about this episode, and we spoke about it straight away. And it is
even ballet dancers, like there's ballet classes to hip hop music now. Like like that video's been all over YouTube. Like you can't stop it.
Can't stop that.
Yeah.
So just like exactly what you said. Develop some appreciation and understanding of it at the very least. And I think we can evolve together. I think we can grow together. I hope that our audience can kind of take something from this episode and not take it as an attack to or think about the things that they maybe aren't doing and take that personally. I know personally, just from me listening to you guys, there's so many things now that I'm inspired to research or look up or do right after this episode. So I hope that our viewers can kind of take that same approach to it.
It comes back to like you don't know what you don't know. Like you might never thought there was any hip hop theory. But now you know there is.
That's okay.
There's definitely technique. There's definitely technique in how to do like everything.
With that, we're not here to like cancel anything anyone's done either.
No.
Like if you've created a routine, you called it hip hop, now you realise that it's not hip hop.
That's okay.
That routine can still be sick.
It's still a dope routine. It's okay.
Most of these choreographers that label their class hip hop, they're not bad dancers. They're amazing dancers. It's just that you've just labelled it wrong.
The wrong thing.
That's the only problem. It's all about labelling.
Or maybe there's just room for more research or more delving deeper into something.
This is another thing as well. A lot of these choreographers know that it's not hip hop.
That's the thing.
Like they know that real hip hop is done to real hip hop music and not to Beyonce. You know what I mean?
If we showed up to one of those classes, people are like, oh no, like I've done something wrong here.
I've done it myself. I've just purposely rocked that to a class, be like, that is not hip hop.
But I mean, I think like anything, it's educating people in a positive way, because I guess on the flip side, there's people get turned off by the thing of just so many people going, and I think that builds the divide as well. Just a lot of people going, oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. That's nothing like hip hop, and then just like boycotting it, and then there's no growth there. It's about going, can I chat to you? Like do you reckon you could and actually helping people grow together is where my head's at.
It's better to be sorry than safe.
I think with Stedfords, for what I've noticed when I've adjudicated them, is that the criteria is the same as a jazz routine.
Yeah.
So like, it's not forcing schools to do anything different in their routine. So I think that would help in Stedfords.
Yep.
Like if you change the criteria, what has to be in there? Because no one needs a straight leg pointed foot in a hip hop routine.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I guess the challenge with that is sometimes.
Okay. All right. Yes, but I'm being general. I'm being so like yuck about it. But that's what. Yeah. That would help.
The challenge, I guess, for comps is to find a lot of the time they can only get one person for the whole day, and it's very rare for someone to have extensive knowledge. It exists, but it's very rare. From styles from ballet to tap to jazz, musical theatre, everything, and hip hop. So I find that, which is okay. I mean, if that person was hired and it's just a comp where they needed one person, I encourage adjudicators to just be honest about that one or two styles that they're not experts in. It's okay if you were booked to do that job and there's one hip hop section in the day. Just be like, look, this isn't my thing. I've gone with what entertained me the most today, but I don't actually have an extensive knowledge in this genre. Then it's okay. Then people aren't, because I think what's happening is there's a lot of routines that are winning that have literally no hip hop in it. So then other studios are like, oh, that's okay. I'll drop my teacher's been doing great work with them, teaching them popping foundation or something. Let's drop all that because they won anyway, and they didn't do anything. That expert said that was amazing, so let's just get them to do that. So just be honest about it at least, and just say, I'm not an expert in this, but whatever. That's another whole world.
And then, sorry, this just occurred to me before, but like one thing that I want to see more of, because I think in the street scene I see a lot more, what's the word, balance between males and females. In the studio scene when it comes to hip hop styles and such, that it's mainly the guys. If I come in to teach them that you've got hip hop with Neven, I see two guys at the front going, and I don't see the girls doing that. And it might be there's a lot more male teachers. It could be a lot of things, but there's a lot less females that get excited about learning
the hip-hop class.
These forms, and I'm not sure if it comes off as extra masculine. Maybe it's because there's more teachers teaching it, but I know when I go to crossover there's probably more girls teaching it than guys. It's just in the studio scene it seems very male dominated. The street informed forms. And I'm not sure why that is. That's one thing.
I think it actually traces back to the roots of where hip hop was born. Because when hip hop started, it was always done at block parties, and it was the guys dancing on the floor to get girls. That was the culture. And so people will get down in circles so that they can see who's the better dancer, and that's how battles started as well. Instead of street fighting, they use dancing as a thing.
I've
so
never
that's why
danced to impress a girl.
Never.
The reason why that was the thing is because of the Latino community. Because the Latino community is like salseros and salsa dancers. They would always
male
dance.
Leaders.
Leaders, and I think where it was built off.
I think, even looking at what people are exposed to online, if you type in ballet dance, a lot of female right? Or a lot of things, some would be half depending on, but if you type in hip hop dance, especially when it was first coming out, it was a lot of males, and a lot of boys were kind of like just going, oh, this is a way for me to get into, or like even the movies, You Got Served and things coming out back then, it was like young males that had never thought about doing dance were starting by getting inspired by that, or even things that were blended like Michael Jackson and stuff like that. So they were initially more excited about that, and maybe more more young girls were like starting when they were 3 doing a ballet class because they watched.
This is a random question. Do you have a boys only hip hop class?
We used to. We did for years, and then what we found was that a lot of them and it was probably a good business decision because a lot of them were ending up kind of filtering in to go, oh, what's that style? What's that? And doing everything. But for me, and that's probably another contributor to that, but for me now, it's like we want to make sure that the girls are just as excited about hip hop as the boys.
I've noticed that at a lot of studios, and I've always questioned, never like been like, why do you? But in my head, I've always been like, why is there a boys only hip hop class?
I think it's a good introduction for young boys to feel comfortable to go to a dance studio, and
Is
their
it
boys
the
are
boys
going to
or
the
is it
soccer
the
field.
parents?
Probably
'Cause
more
I
the
don't know.
parents. Yeah, I mean, I've always recently felt like, oh yes, we're getting to the point where it's more cool for boys to dance, and it's less bullied, about boys dancing. But I still hear about a lot of cases where they are still getting bullied. So I think it'd be a half-half kind of situation. Yeah.
What I also noticed was that when I went to teach at some studios where they had boys hip hop and just a normal hip hop classes, I asked the boys, why don't you take the hip hop class? Like just a normal hip hop class, and then they said, oh, the movement's too girly.
Well, then,
So
if the
then
teacher's
it goes back
different,
to the teacher teaching.
we've always
street
had the
jazz
same
or
teacher
whatever.
doing both, and then
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, well, let's just let them do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because we're not.
Another thing about the females starting hip hop, it was actually a huge influence was the movie Breakdance. It came out in 1984. It's about a female learning how to do hip hop dance.
Yeah.
That was the
Is
whole.
that the one that Van Damme's
Damn
in?
media.
Isn't Van
Isn't that
Damme's
where-
in
Yeah, Van Damme is in that.
Am I right in saying that that was when breaking started being referred to as breakdance?
Yes.
Based on that, yeah.
Initially, breaking is b-boying.
Yes.
That's the correct term.
Right. Yes. yeah,
Originally,
that's right.
boogie boys or break boys. That's why it's called b-boying. And so originally, when people say break dance, that's not the actual term. It's supposed to be called b-boying.
B-boying, yeah.
Or now it's b-girling as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that movie was like a huge influence in the United States, and now people thought, oh, the females can do hip hop, and then I think that's where, because that was pretty much
definitely.
the main point of the movie at the start.
Yeah.
It was like the girl trying to learn.
That's like
she,
that's every dance movie.
she-
Every dance movie.
Yeah,
The girl has to learn
the
hip hop, like,
Well, that's
So
my
many.
stuff, I guess. Just stop them watching those movies. Oh, but they're so good.
But then it's cool, but that's the catch-22 because it's like those things are exposing the world to these styles, but they might just then call it the wrong thing,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
or represent it maybe the wrong way. But it's still kind of getting things out there.
Yeah.
So it's always a
And also another thing about popping and locking being under the umbrella term of hip hop, it was also that movie as well that they just put it together. They just put the New York dance and the West Coast dance together into this one thing. And then, so
Starts
the
making
East
that.
Coast liked what the West Coast did, West Coast liked what the East Coast did. So then they bonded together, and then it became this umbrella term hip hop.
Yeah.
So the pioneers say it's okay to call popping and locking hip hop, but technically it's not
But technically
hip hop
it's not.
because
Yeah.
it's come from different places and
yeah,
dressed differently, everything's different, music's different, yeah.
totally, yeah. Because then there's been even that debate where we shouldn't be allowed to call the class hip hop, and it's just. It's so hard for as a business perspective to be like, well, then what can I call my class if I don't have the base to be able to run separate classes for each?
Is that are all studios questioning that, or is that just coming from our world? Like that's something I don't really know. Like is our world influencing what studios are considering calling that class?
Yeah, like I've just heard people bring up the debate lately that saying that studios should not be calling the class hip hop in general. But I think that's coming from more the really.
I think that depends on who's teaching it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, no, I guess definitely it's if they're not teaching anything to do with hip hop, then it shouldn't be called hip hop. But there has to be kind of a word that we can use to call that 1 hour class that we have time to put in for the week, as long as it's taught by the right person. Yeah. Yeah, that's doing a real hip hop style or styles of hip hop. I think we should leave it there.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time and your knowledge. It's been really amazing for me to learn lots of awesome stuff, and I'm sure our audience will feel the same. Thanks so much again for watching, guys.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming
man.
on. Like I say, guys, make sure you subscribed. Drop some comments in the bottom. Let us know what you thought. And give me any ideas you have on future episodes and guests. and yeah, share it on your pages. Let's get the word out there. It's really important that people are learning from people within their fields, and we're kind of continuing to grow together. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Dance Talk.